Ah, the Empire of Man. A most fascinating geopolitical construct, a grand and sputtering machine composed of gunpowder, bureaucracy, and an astonishing amount of beer. And as your humble infernal aristocrat and research-obsessed anthropologist, I have taken it upon myself to study this glorious mud-encrusted civilization. The results, dear viewer, are both illuminating and horrifying. Mostly horrifying. Now grab your holy symbol, your hat with far too many feathers, and a snacky, for we are going to dissect the Empire one pompous province at a time. Now I must state in advance, I am not a fan of humans. Their fragility, short lifespan, short structure. Despite having absolutely nothing going for them, they still live. They still fight for their place in this world with their backs against the wall. It's almost redeeming. Almost. Anywho, the Empire is not so much a nation as it is a collection of mutually suspicious duchies fused together by faith, fear, and sheer stubbornness. Founded by the legendary Sigmar Heldenhammer, you know, the founder of the Empire, once human turned god who bashed orc skulls so hard they practically signed peace treaties out of fear. Oh, more on him later. The Empire has somehow survived over 2.5 millennia of chaos invasions, plague, and, local elections. First, we'll start with the Empire's geography. To the north, chaos. To the south, greenskins. To the east, vampire counts. And to the west, Britonia, which is arguably worse. Full of peasants and all that. Let us tour the provinces, shall we? We have Reichland, home of Altdorf and the most civilized province, by which I mean moderately less likely to stab you for looking foreign. I say less likely as they did still try. Middenland, where everyone smells faintly of wet wolf. Ulrich's people, you know, loud, proud, and perpetually shirtless. I enjoyed that one. Talabhercland, a forested land of hunters, druids, and people who think bathing is just a chaos plot. Averland, renowned for its yellow uniforms and political infighting, so intense it's practically performance art. Stirland. Let's not talk about Stirland. I could do an entire separate lecture on the insanity of this province's people and the smell. Ostland and Ostermark, the punching bags of the Chaos invasions. Their motto may as well be, "We die so you don't have to." Wissenland, home to the Imperial Gunnery School. If Altdorf is where things explode magically, Nuln is where they explode scientifically. Each province is like a sibling in a deeply dysfunctional family, pretending to cooperate while secretly plotting each other's downfall. A truly inspiring example of human politics. Remind you of anyone? While I'm on this subject, there was once another province of the Empire, Sylvania. Technically part of Stirland, it is perpetually cursed, perpetually foggy, and perpetually moist. The air tastes like mildew and regret. The trees whisper, the ground oozes. Honestly, it's like living inside a vampire's laundry hamper. Speaking of vampires, most of the population literally are. Each province is ruled by an Elector count. No jokes, please. The province's local celebrity and usually the one highest on their hit list. They each have their own armies, their own laws, and most importantly, their own deeply petty rivalries. Oh yes, the Elector counts are technically united under an emperor in Altdorf, but in practice it's less one nation under Sigmar and more, I'm gonna watch you very closely so that you don't stab me in the back before I see it coming.
Summon the Elector counts!
At the time of my travels, the 26th century IC, the Elector counts are as follows. Marius Leitdorf of Averland. Good start, as this human is dead with no current successors. He was once the greatest warrior in the Empire. Once. Aldebrand Ludenhof of Hochland. At least this one is alive. Shame about his son, though, devolved into a chaos mutant before his time. How tragic. Boris Toddy, Todbringer of Middenland, the proclaimed beloved of Ulrich. You know, the god of cold and wolves. If that doesn't give you a hint as to what Toddy is like, then I don't know what will. Theodoric Gosser of Nordland claims to be the prince of an independent nation, is rather ironically banned from ever setting foot within said nation. Valmir von Rugoff of Ostland. Now this one rules over the land bordering the fabulously dangerous Troll Country. Oh, what fun. Wolfram Hertwig of Ostermark. Imagine being so inadequate that you are named after your biggest failure. I should tell you mortals about the Battle of Hertwig's Folly sometime. Hilarious. Alberic Haupt Anderson of Stirland. Stirland is without a doubt the biggest cesspit in the old world, and I've been to Nurgle's garden. To call yourself leader of that degeneracy is utter insanity. Helmut Fjordback of Talabacland. If you could have an award for the most humans who want to see you dead, this gentleman would be the grand owner of such a prestigious title. He has a temper, apparently. Emanuel von Liebwitz of Wissenland. The only woman among the electors, she is shrewd of mind, ruling her land with an iron fist. I should take a few notes from my cult. And finally, the last and the least, the Emperor Karl Franz of Reichland. Now I must apologize, but I have a love-hate relationship with this man. He presides over this turbulent empire, for now. Warrior, diplomat, and the only man capable of making a feathered hat look commanding. He wields Gal Maraz, Sigmar's sacred warhammer, and rides a griffin named Deathclaw, so named because mildly inconveniencing talons didn't have the same ring. Karl Franz is perhaps the most competent leader the Empire has ever had, which, given its historical competition, isn't much. Still, he tries, bless him. His reign is a precarious balance of diplomacy, warfare, and pretending that the nobles aren't about to stab him. Speaking of Karl, Altdorf, the beating, bloated heart of the Empire. The humans call it the City of Spires. Imagine if every bureaucrat, wizard, priest, and rat decided to build a city together and then never cleaned it. Once. That's Altdorf. Sitting in Reichland, it is home to the Imperial Palace, the College of Magic, and for some reason, a bloody zoo. You can smell Altdorf before you see it, a bouquet of tar, sewage, and theological argument. Altdorf was founded by the Sigmar Heldenhammer, sat upon the River Reich. I use river loosely, it's more of a thick soup of utter foulness today. Altdorf is where the Emperor resides, looking over His Majesty. If you count His Majesty as 3 separate plague zones, a demon invasion, and whatever the witch hunters are burning today. Middenheim, the city of the White Wolf. Perched high upon a colossal mountain of rock, like a particularly arrogant cat that knows it's better than every other city in the Empire. 4 great causeways connected to the rest of the Empire, which are conveniently sized for dramatic duels, invasions, and a spontaneous explosion or 2. People here are blasphemous towards Sigmar. Instead, Middenheim is home to the cult of Ulrich. Middenheim is the capital of Middenland, if you couldn't guess. The geography makes it nearly impregnable, unless of course you are a Slanesh warlord, in which case you can impregnate everything. Nuln. The city that smells like oil, gunpowder, and the crushed dreams of unlicensed engineers. Nuln is also called the Bastion of the South, or the Jewel of the Empire. Do you like guns? Do you like cannons? And then, darling, Nuln is for you. Now, Nuln is not very pretty. It doesn't want to be. Here, progress and peril are the same, and both smell faintly of sulfur. Nuln is the capital of Wissenland. I lectured there once. Well, technically I crashed a lecture to correct a professor's math, but the point is, my data was flawless and the building only partially collapsed. Talabheim! Unlike other cities, Talabheim was built within a great forest. It sits inside a crater. Legend says the crater was forged by Tal himself, the most worshipped god here. Other legends say it was a comet or by the sheer weight of human stupidity. Records differ. They're all about nature here. You've got forest shamans arguing with tax collectors as to whether the deer are taxable and houses made from wood that would make the local elves recoil in horror. Talabheim is the capital of Talabacland. Not very imaginative, these humans. Averheim lies in Averland. Personally, the most boring city I visited in the Empire. Imagine being constantly in the shadow of your bigger brother. That's Averheim to Altdorf. Finally, the biggest achievement and biggest talk amongst the locals is how the city once beat the Orc war boss, Gorbat Ironclaw, and drove him away. Well done, I suppose. Ostland and Ostermark also have their own respectable capitals, but every time I went to visit, they were under siege from Chaos and Skaven and once giant spiders. Horrifying. Marienburg. Now, Marienburg isn't necessarily an empire city, but I thought I should include it. A city so rich it literally bought its own independence. That's right, darlings. While Karl was busy polishing his hammer, the merchant lords paid their way out of history. Now, that is the divine right of capitalism. Of course, I cannot set foot within any monasteries, however, religion is everywhere in the Empire. The people are devout, pious, and perpetually terrified that chaos is hiding under their bed, which, statistically speaking, it probably is. The dominant faith is, of course, the worship of Sigmar. His priests are clad in hammers, robes, and an unshakable sense of moral superiority. A personal favourite of mine. But Sigmar shares the pantheon with others. Ulrich, the god of wolves and shouting. Mor, the god of death and tasteful graveyards. Tal, the god of nature, beasts and unwashed masses. And Renald, god of luck, fortune and backstabbing thieves. And Shalia, the goddess of healing and disapproving sighs. Of course, there may be more, but the local stories about them were utterly unamusing and not worth the research. There are a few who take the religion a step further, and let it ultimately power their will in battle. Warrior priests, for when priests get bored of standing in their churches listening to the many sins of people. They wield hammers, of course, and dress in armoured robes, patrolling the streets and enforcing Sigmar's will, often with lethal force. Flagellants, you know, those people who must strike themselves in an act of clarity. They make great frontline troops, and they take the mentality of, what can you do to me that I haven't already done to myself, very seriously. And let us not forget the witch hunters, the Empire's version of pest control. If the pests were people and the fumigant was fire, they roam the land sniffing out heresy, corruption, and anything that looks slightly too symmetrical. Nothing says holy justice like lighting your neighbour on fire because they read the wrong book. It was because of these fine gentlemen that I had to remove my horns to wander their great cities. Took forever to grow back. Now, one must give humans credit where credit's due. Despite being soft, flammable, and emotionally unstable, they are brilliant at war. The Empire's armies are a glorious mixture of medieval discipline and industrial chaos. Picture regimented ranks of halberdiers, musketeers, and knights marching beside experimental war wagons that may or may not explode upon ignition. Each province raised regiments with their own uniforms, flags, and levels of professional despair. Without taking their, rather impressive I must add, magic abilities into account, you have swordsmen, your disciplined line troops, trained, armoured, and tragically sober. If you're a lucky boy, you might even get given a shield to block the onslaught of arrows that blot out the sky. Halberdiers carry the Empire's favourite weapon, part spear, part axe, and entirely unwieldy. Spearmen exist to mostly get charged by cavalry and large monsters. If you are given a spear at the barracks, you surely begin to question your life choices. Great swords, for when the small sword just won't cut it. These bunch of manly men take overcompensating to a literal point, as long as they point their swords towards the enemy, I suppose. Other than standard infantry, the Empire flaunt a healthy amount of gunpowder, including but not limited to handgunners, men with standard issue guns which are 70% smoke, 20% noise, and 10% please don't blow up in my face. Cannons that can obliterate ogres, mortars that can obliterate forests, and a hellblast of volley guns that can obliterate the concept of accuracy. Hellstorm rocket battery, for when you don't know where the enemy are, but you are pretty sure they are within a mile radius and want to level everything around, just to be sure. And whatever this thing is. And the steam tank, oh the steam tank. A mechanical miracle of Sigmarite engineering that runs on pressure, prayers, and pure denial. 1 in 5 explodes before reaching the battle. However, 4 in 5 turn the battle entirely in their favour. A fair trade, statistically speaking. They live in a perpetual state of siege. Bandits, cultists, beastmen, demons, taxes, all vying for a slice of human misery pie. It's almost beautiful. In a tragicomic way, like watching the man from the Stitch movies repeatedly drop his ice cream. The Empire is an experiment, a miracle of human tenacity. It should have collapsed centuries ago, and yet, through faith, fire, and sheer administrative stubbornness, it persists. Every city, every field, every paranoid village priest is part of an ecosystem of chaos barely held together by ritual, superstition, and hope. Hope. Such a fragile, irrational thing. I find it distasteful, but admirable. In a way, the Empire is the perfect metaphor for humanity itself. Dirty, violent, confused, and completely unkillable. And so concludes my field report on the Empire of Man, a nation of contradictions, where divine zealotry meets scientific curiosity, and every tavern is one heresy away from an inquisition. Maybe next time I can lecture you about my visits to the many magical colleges of Altdorf. If you find yourself wandering the Empire roads, remember these simple rules. Don't trust anyone, especially priests, especially wizards, and never under any circumstances attend a town festival after midnight. Unless you enjoy being turned into a chaos spawn, then by all means mingle. This has been your demonic scholar of imperial dysfunction. Like, subscribe, and remember, knowledge is power, and power is usually heresy in the Empire. The Empire has somehow survived over... We have Reichland, home of their own laws, and most importantly, their own deep, petty rivalry. Theoderic Gosser, what? Emanuel von Leibwitz of... Leibwitz?